I'm Chad Rutherman.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And welcome to NOCLIP Pocket. The WoW starts now. And today, we're going to be talking about Quadrilateral Cowboy, a game that was developed and published by Blendo Games and was released in 2016 on Windows, macOS, and Linux.
But first, if you can give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated.
All right, so Quadrilateral Cowboy is a lot of things. I would say genre-wise, it is most closely resembling a puzzle game. Very much in the vein of something along the lines of like the Talos Principle.
Yeah, it's also got a little bit of that like escape room kind of energy to it.
Yeah, it's like a... it is a like case the environment and use the information that you learn to solve movement puzzles kind of game. And I typically like to open with sort of like a thesis about a game, but I feel like before anyone takes what I say in this podcast seriously, there is a vibe check that needs to be passed. And that is the core conceit of this game, and is just something that I have a huge soft spot for, and that is it's a game that makes you type stuff, and that can in a million different ways. Like any game that's like if it's a desktop simulator or a game like this where it's like a hacking simulation. Anything that makes you use your keyboard to just type stuff in to perform actions, I'm going to be super into. And so I did really like this game. And it is entirely hinged on that and that alone. Because like when you extrapolate beyond that, like what you're doing, I think this game is like clever, but it doesn't like go above and beyond in many other ways, I guess is how I would describe it.
Yeah, I like so many things about this game on paper, but it was like really hard for my right-brained ass to grab a hold of.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This game has there's a logic. When you learn computer programming, one of the things that's like it's in the newer age, which I guess is not that new anymore. Probably if like you started learning in the last like 15 years, somebody had you play a game type thing where you had to like input sequential commands into a robot, whether it's a virtual robot or like a little actual toy robot. And then it would execute those in order and you had to like complete a goal. And this game is like, just take that up to like 11 levels of that where now it's not like navigate down a hallway and press a button. It's like do that. And then also there's like a timing puzzle involved and you have to memorize the layout of the level so you can do all this other stuff. So it's kind of like a very complicated version of that, like learn computational logic class, like that introductory class. So this was something that I was like, the concepts in the game were something that I was like reasonably familiar with. And the game does, for the record, the game, while it has its own like syntax of how you have to type everything out, does not expect you to like code anything in C++ or whatever.
No.
It is very much like an invented, very simple high level language where you just type in like, individual commands.
Yeah, command.
Yeah. But yeah, that to me is what, and that is how this game was sold to me when it originally came out, which as I said before we started recording, I am shocked that this game came out in 2016.
Yeah, like you put this on the list and I guess like in my memory, this has been on like the backlog since we started the podcast. Well, I guess maybe it was. Because around 2016, it's actually probably right. But like,
yeah, we started in 2015, so
yeah, like in my
it's
head,
been on the log for a million years.
Yeah, in my head, this was like a game you played in high school or something. It's very much not the case.
No, sadly, I am. Well, No, wait, hold on. I'm canonically 19, so
Right, of course.
yeah, obviously I did play this in high school in 2016. I don't know if that math works out. No, I think that would be like in elementary school. But it is definitely that kind of a game. And like Blendo games, we've talked about this on the podcast before. The podcast inspiration for this podcast was Idle Thumbs, and Blendo Games, headed by Brendan Chung, is like, I don't know if they're like friends with the hosts or if they just are big fans because they talked about their games before. They've got a game called Gravity Bone, another one called 30 Flights of Loving, both of which that I've also played. And this is one that just like stood, like I just never actually got around to it. So I am happy that we eventually got right down to actually playing it. Mm-hmm. We just had to roll on a table.
Yeah. Now that May is over, we can finally start Mystery May.
Finally. But yeah, so I guess let's get what about this game did you find specifically difficult to parse?
It's kind of hard to describe because I feel like it's just almost kind of like RimWorld. I feel like the person that, or the people that made this, just feel like the way they design stuff just does not connect with me. Like it's rare, at least for me, or maybe it's because we're very selective with what games we pick for this podcast. But like it's rare for me to like really bounce off of a game, like in terms of like its design language. Like I would like go into a level and you have a map, but like I would always want to just like, I'm notoriously somebody who ignores maps and just want to like explore and do stuff. So I would always go towards like the second or third objective and not the first one if I was just exploring the level and would like waste time trying to do something I wasn't supposed to yet.
Right.
And then before I looked at the map and realized like, oh, I need to go over there. And then like I played like half the game and like never realized the functionality of the no clipping function, where you're like, that's just like so you can explore the level before you do anything, and that just never occurred to me to do. Like I don't, so much about the design language feels like it was just done by somebody whose brain works completely differently than mine. So like it felt like most things felt unintuitive to me in a way that I don't experience super often.
That's fair. I think that you probably had a similar experience to this as I had with like, I mean, I was going to say Catherine because it's also a puzzle game and one that just like basically took a big dump on my face. I was just like really bad at that game, but realistically it's probably closer to the experience that I had with Fire Emblem. Because it was a game that I just like had no way of connecting with. Like I didn't have previous experience in the genre, and like now if I went back to it, maybe I'd be able to make inroads, but it was like somebody handing me like an English to German dictionary and then asking me to like navigate around Munich. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this one off, bud. So yeah, I'm definitely, I feel that experience. I also feel your first complaint about occasionally just like completely going off and doing something that isn't being asked of you at all.
Yeah, like
that happened to me at least like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's like the second or third like set of missions, or it's the one with like the train cars that you like pull the lever to like move them. Like I wasted so much time trying to get into the wrong car before I realized I wasn't supposed to be there yet.
Yeah. So there's a lot of the design of this game that I want to talk about later, that I do like genuinely really love. Like outside of the mechanical type things onto the deck part, which is the main thing that I love. The second thing that I most love is a lot of these sort of like little like diegetic design bits that it pumps in. But one of the things that I will say is a questionable choice is that you have like a diegetic dossier that has the details of the mission that you're on, and then also like the instruction manuals for all of your gadgets. But when you press the button and pull it up, most of the time it is just black because you also have to turn on a flashlight to be able to read it.
Yeah,
and it took me like
really
2
weird.
levels to know that. So the thing that told me what I was supposed to be doing, I could not read. I don't know. Did you get to the villa level? It's the one that has like the windows that you prop open. Yeah. That level I spent so long trying to set up like a cool solution to like in one shot get from the outside up to the second floor, and then didn't realize until later that I didn't even have to do that until the next stage. Which, like, obviously, anytime that happens, you're like, well, at least I have a plan for the next mission.
Right.
But yeah, it does, like, it takes a bit of the wind out of your sails when you set up like this cool domino effect, and then you're like, oh, I actually didn't need to do that at all. It was a big waste of my time.
Yeah, like, it especially stings if you, like, get out the little robot. The
Weevil.
Weaver. Weevil.
Yeah.
And you like, because that guy could be really tedious to maneuver around, and then if you realize you don't need to be doing it, you're like, well, I just wasted 30 minutes. That's it. Doesn't actually take that long usually, but it feels like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I remember there was one level where I like you have to climb into a vent. But the vent looked too small for me to climb into, so I just didn't even try it. So I just threw the Weevil in it and was like trying to navigate around with it. And it takes so long because it's so slow. And then later I just like tried to jump up into it and you just climb right in. And I was like, wow, that one really was wasted time. I learned nothing that whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that all makes sense to me. I think that there's like this game is not a game for everyone for a lot of reasons, and I can definitely see it being on the trickier side to like pick up on. Like, I don't think this is like a Steven sausage roll level where the game starts becoming impossible to play after one level.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of game, but I'd almost compare it to something like Roller Drome, where like that's another game I liked a lot, but like I got about halfway through and I had to like turn the difficulty down. Like it's like, this is for a different type of person than me.
Yeah, and also like Roller Drome, it's a game that has a very cool aesthetic sense, but doesn't like. It does not make any compromises in its mechanical elements at all.
Yeah.
Which that's if I go listen to that episode. That's my engagement of the week. Gotta get that in there.
Yeah, so one thing that you mentioned that I also stood out to me is that like diegetic tutorializing.
Yeah.
Like in the first level, and when you go into the tutorial level, you go into the train car and it says on the ground like, watch your head, and that's how like you know how to look up and that you know that the door is going to swing and you need to like get out of the way.
Right.
And next to your bat computer where you start all the missions, there's a little box that's like press Z to zoom in, you know, like they're just like in the environment, and I think they all stand out nicely, and like it's like a really cool organic way to tutorialize things.
Yeah, like anything that could have been something that flashed up on the screen, which like would have worked even in this game because so much of it takes place within like a weird VR headset simulation of a place. Like even anything that would show up there is often rather instead put just in the environment, and it's very, very cool like that. I liked and this kind of functions in a similar way to the way that the deck works, which, if you haven't played the game, the deck is essentially just like a portable computer that you throw on the ground, which I also love. You don't just pull up like a menu. You have to find a place to put the deck and then get on it and actually use it, which can lead to great things like trying to type out a command while balancing on a pipe and then falling to your death. I enjoy
or like
doing
when you're
that.
in zero gravity.
Yep.
So like it's floating away from you.
And you have to like keep up. Yeah. Extremely good. Shit that I like a lot. But there will be like switches that you can flip. So things like light switches, but then also like things that like open a door, or, like crack a window or something. And they're all labeled so that like when you use it, like it would be in real life, you know what it's going to do. And it doesn't have to like highlight it and put like this is a light switch, turn off, press the X button or whatever. It just says it on there, and then you interact with it and it works in the way you'd expect. So yeah, there's just like a lot of cool little diegetic things like that work really well. You can play music if you want by carrying around like a record player.
A portable record player.
Yeah, which is really good. Which also like this game is like I feel like this aesthetic exists in reality. Like there are other things that share it, but like this game is like a techno dystopian cyberpunk world, but with like classic 50s noir setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just like fits together shockingly well, in a way that I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, it's kind of like retrofuturism, but instead of like the like 50s diner, like all chrome, sleek spaceship kind of thing, it's more like the 80s mixed with like a Blade Runner type thing.
It's like it's like future retroism.
There you go. It's future retroism.
Yeah.
Coin it.
Yeah, a great, very not stupid thing. But I mean, I don't know. I actually kind of, thinking about it more, I do kind of like it actually, because it is like that, yeah, like that Brazil, or that Blade Runner style of cyberpunk dystopia, but then also they have like things that feel like they are being taken from the past.
Yeah. It also kind of like makes you, it feels kind of like something like Alien, where you have the spaceship feels like it has these like busted ass 80s computers in it, you know, but it's like a futuristic spaceship. So it's got that grimy like 80s dystopian thing going on.
Yeah. And it's helped a lot by the game's graphical style, which is like just definitively lo-fi. Everyone is made up of just like, I mean, I presume that this is the quadrilateral part of the Quadrilateral Cowboy
right
title, but yeah, all of your characters are these like enormous cube-headed people who just sort of walk around with a texture painted onto them.
Right, like walk around like South Park characters.
Yeah.
They do look like they would be like NPCs in Katamari or something.
That's actually pretty close to how I would describe them to somebody who'd not seen a Blendo game before. They are like the Katamari people if they were like more narrow.
Yeah, and had bigger boxes for heads.
Yeah. I didn't look this up, and perhaps I should have, but I don't believe that this game at any point has like a literal textual narrative. It has like, well, I mean, I guess it has a literal narrative in the sense that a story is being told as the game goes on, but
right.
like nobody ever speaks or just like outwardly says your motivations and stuff.
Right.
And I'm wondering how that worked for you.
I liked it. I think it fits this type of game. The more like inferred narrative or like the more environmental storytelling, like there's these little interstitial bits where you like pick up your teammates from their houses on your little hover bike. And you can, like, if you're quick, you can go inside their house while the door's still open. You can like look around at their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's one where you play badminton or whatever, and with one of the other people, like you're just hanging out on a rooftop or whatever. So like I feel like it feels organic. It makes you curious. Like I think it respects your intelligence. Like it makes you want to learn more about what's going on. Like the fact that you can't talk to the other two people really made me want to go explore their apartment so I could like learn about them. So like I think it did feel organic and cool.
Yeah, because like the overall sort of like thrust of what's happening in the game is like you are a part of essentially like a heist group, like an Ocean's 3.
An elite hacker squad?
Yeah, an elite hacker squad, but it's like you are like the hacker. Like that's your role. And then there's the girl who's always doing exercises is like the muscle, and like she has a rocket launcher at some point in the game. And then the other one I think is like the tinkerer, like the mechanic person. Yeah, because she's always like reading stuff and working on things. And so it is like they do a really good job of characterizing them very like instantaneously, just like with how they're presented, without having to actually have like dialogue and narration. And it does, yeah, it sparks your curiosity. Like, why are you in this situation? Why are we doing this? Like, you get your payout, and then you always use the money to go buy more gadgets in order to pull off bigger jobs as the game goes on and on to its conclusion, which I believe neither of us got to, but I think for different reasons.
Yeah, I watched the ending on YouTube.
Yeah. I also had to. So this is one thing to chalk up as a negative for the game. Early on playing the game did crash a couple of times on me. It's unfortunate, but it happens. Same. Near the end of the game, I could not get it to run anymore. I think I was like an hour. Yeah, I had like an hour before I was done, roughly, based on my time played and shit. But, like, I would load the level, and I would do, like, 3 things, and the game would just crash.
Like, in the same spot every time?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, it happened to me. Like, there were a couple of places where if I did a specific thing, it would always crash it. I was like, well, I guess I had to find a different way to do that.
Which is, unfortunately, just, like, a problem with software development. Sometimes shit is just busted, and there isn't much to do about that. So yeah, I mean, I was bummed that I'm sure that there's something I could have done to get to the end of the game, but like, I just kind of got like, I was kind of over it at that point. I was like, I don't want to redo the first part of this mission like a bunch of times. So I gave up and also watched the end of it. But yeah, I would say like, if I had to list my big negatives of the game, number 1 would be game crashed a lot. And it is an 8-year-old game, and obviously was made on a shoestring budget by like one guy to not many people. But it is a real shame that it is not like it's probably like my hardware is either like too far advanced or has like a bug in it. I don't know, something like that.
I did also find that level with the windows that came up that we talked about earlier. Like, I found a spot where, like, if I put the deck down, like, right up against that wall, I could clip through it and, like, skip part of the puzzle.
Hell so yeah.
I felt pretty cool about that.
I did not find anything that was a beneficial bug, sadly. Though I do know that this game has like a small but dedicated speedrun community that is just all about like completely destroy, like the speedrun record for this game I think is like 4 minutes or something. Like
That
it's
makes
it's one of
sense.
those games that it just seems like impossible that they did it that quickly. Which is very cool. But also like I did not manage to take much away from that knowledge. It's 13 minutes actually. I just googled it. Is the
Oh,
world
man.
record speedrun for this game, which is pretty nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like one of those games that you could completely split open like that. Just
Yeah,
clip through everything. I mean, it already has a no clip mode built into it.
that's a good point. Yeah,
I'm sure you can exploit that somehow.
but beyond that though, there is like a I think, but sort of to go back to the beginning of the episode, and also to just sort of like make sure that we talk about some of the stuff in the game proper. Uh, did you have like a puzzle or puzzle mechanic that you particularly liked, or conversely particularly hated with everything in you?
I don't think there's any that I hated with everything in me. I think the robot was the most tedious and therefore the one I liked the least. Um, got gadget. I don't know. The gun is cool. Like I think my favorite level that I played was the one where you started out in space, I guess, and you had to go into the airlock and go in, and there was like a part where you had to like go around and like shoot a window from the outside to like open the door from the other angle to get in to download the guy's brain. I think that was
Yeah.
my favorite level.
I actually agree with you on that. I think that's also my favorite level in the game. Partially for the same reason, and also just because that level introduced the concept of downloading a brain, which is a pretty
Right.
wild thing.
Yeah, like,
that I always like to see.
that's an earlier level, and I already feel like that was reaching like the upper level of complexity that like I wanted out of the mechanics.
That's fair. I think that there's like this game is a game that could have gone, and I think kind of did. It goes very wide without taking anything like so complex. Like it's one of those things where it's like I like that they found interesting ways to use the different mechanics more so than they just said like what, like one of the earliest levels, like, I literally think it's like the third level of the game where you get the jump pad and you like jump to a tower, and then you have to like go inside and steal something that's on a pressure plate and then jump back up. Actually, I think it's a level before you get the jump thing, now that I'm thinking about it. I think you steal something.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then you have to take the vent back up and open the thing. And in order to do that, you have to like type out a pretty long command to just execute all in one go.
Yeah. You take something off the prize off of the pressure plate, and then you have to have queued everything up, like all the doors to open, so that you can just run out before the time's up.
Right. And that was an extremely satisfying string of events to set up, but also like that's a very complicated use of the core like deck coding mechanic. Like you're using your like timings and the weights to make sure that you have enough time, but not so much time that the other thing goes off. And so, like, that's a pretty complicated use of that mechanic, but then later on you get, like, the blink, which allows you to execute things remotely from the deck itself, which allows you to do simpler things, but on as a key press instead of as, like, a whole thing where you have to type out. So it takes what was, like, a very, like, you can imagine if you went back to that level with blink, suddenly you could just like put open door on blink and then you
Right.
run in, you grab it, then you blink, you get out, and you no longer have to worry about that big string. So rather than just continually deepening the complexity of like one base mechanic, this one will add new ones in order to broaden the scope of what you can do. Which, while I also found this game pretty difficult to execute, it has like an almost Hotline Miami-ish feeling to it, where I felt like the iteration time was so short that I didn't find myself getting frustrated. But I did find the game hard, but at the same time, like, I found that most of the puzzles and stuff were really satisfying to actually do. So that was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like it's less that like I found doing stuff over and over to be like tedious or like frustrating. It's just like the way in which these are complicated like fills me with like a sense of dread. Like I feel like there's like two types of people. The kind of people who will like see I have to like program out it or like set up this whole like Rube Goldberg machine of stuff, you know, within this time limit or whatever, and be like, oh yeah, that will make them excited. And then there's the other type of person that's gonna be like, oh no. And I'm the type of person that says, oh no.
Mm-hmm. You haven't started playing Infinifactory yet, have you?
Nope. I was gonna start it today if we didn't record.
Yeah, I just started it pretty recently, and
yeah, I know,
it's definitely an oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am verging on the oh no. I am 3 levels in, and I'm like, oh no. Yeah, honestly, I'm so happy, one, that we got both of these games in our first rolls for Mystery May, but also that we did this one first. Because I feel like this is a great introduction to the kind of logic that you need to solve the puzzles in Infinifactory. So it's a cool theme that we ended up with accidentally and by complete random.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I know a little bit about programming because I know how to like design websites. But like, I don't know, something about like the cognitive load of like programming just like stresses me out. For some reason.
And it's also funny to think about because I found this game so much easier than even like the earlier parts of Infinifactory. And we'll talk about that more on that episode when we get to it. But this game, I think it is because in this game it's all presented as text. Like I can just when I type in, like I know what I need to do. And in Infinifactory everything is a block. And so I have to visualize what it looks like.
That'll be more beneficial for me.
Yeah, and it is fucking my ass right up, let me tell you.
But I'll still suck.
So yeah, it's sort of cool. Yeah, I think we're both going to suck at it, to be honest, so hope everybody's looking forward to that.
Yeah, look forward to that.
Do you have anything else, presentation-wise,
I think the last thing was the blink mechanic I did want to mention, which we just talked about. So yeah, that seemed like it could have been like the core mechanic to me almost. Like when I got to it, I was like, I'm surprised this wasn't introduced earlier.
Oh yeah, when you finally get it, and the level that you get it in, like it isn't. I mean, technically, blink would never be necessary because you could just like put an appropriate number of wait commands in, because it still requires you to like know what you have to do ahead of time, in order to use it. But like, it's like you almost barely need to use it in the first level that you have it, which sets it up, which I think is cool because it sets it up more as a mechanic that is like a new tool in your toolbox. More so than like this is the core conceit of the whole thing. Like when you get the Weevil, the first level you get it in, like you have to walk it through a fucking vent maze, and I'm like, end my life because it's so slow. Which yeah, you mentioned we agreed that the level that you mentioned was both of our favorite levels. I think we also agree that my least favorite mechanic is the Weaver. just because it is so slow. And like I like it conceptually, but also like I don't know anybody who would have the ability to estimate distance in the units that are in the game that are unspecified
Right.
in a way that you would not have to like just type like go 1,000,000 and then just stop it whenever it gets to where you want it to be.
It is kind
Which
of
like
satisfying.
takes
to
a lot of
try.
the fun out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of satisfying to try and learn it. But yeah, it is like there's just so much trial and error.
Yeah. Like I feel like if I could say go to the wall and then turn left and then go and then I could leave the deck and go do something else.
Right.
That would be great. But I cannot do that because of the weird distance mechanic. So
Yeah, it's also
I ended up
like
not liking it very much.
it's also like hard to see, like when you need to rely on the camera. Like there's the one level, I think when you get the launch pad, you have to go and like send it through a vent and drop it down into a room. And then in that room, it has to like go to one of those switches and plug into it and like open a door or something. But that room's so big. Like once you drop the robot down into it, you're like, where do I go? Like
where
like,
am I?
Where is the switch? You gotta like pull out the map, and it's just like I wish I could just see.
That's true. No, I do want to say that I love that you just carry around a stack of TVs.
Yeah, your little
that you
monitors.
throw on a desk and you're like just to monitor, and it works with both the Weevil and the gun, which is nice.
That is like kind of satisfying that like you manually place those.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's like one of my favorite things about the whole game.
It's got like that tactile guy in the van trademark feel to it.
This is very much we should have put this up front so that when Dan listens to it he knows that he should give it a shot.
Yeah.
This is a real guy in the van simulator kind of game.
I think I'm going to visit them next month, so I will I'll tell them to listen to this episode.
Good. Yeah, I mean that's what I got. It's cool. We didn't talk much about the end of the game because it was kind of unstable for me.
And it was too hard for my dumbass.
Yeah, you get a nice there's like it does elevate its complexity a little bit, I know, near the end, because you have like the multiple different sort of like characters that you have to swap through, or like different VR headsets that you jump into that are capable of different things. Which is a cool idea, but like I think goes a little bit beyond the core conceit. I think that like the early levels sort of like are really what the game is about, and then it kind of just balloons into like here are some other things we could also do in this concept, and like they work, but they aren't like, to me they aren't core in the way that the other stuff really is.
Yeah, I would have liked a narrower, deeper scope. Personally, like, yeah, the fact that it kept introducing new things, like, I didn't like.
Yeah, I can see that, and
like,
also get behind it.
I think I liked it. It felt like I liked each level less than the previous one, to an extent.
Yeah. All right. Do we have funicular thoughts?
I was gonna say firmware thought.
Also good.
So I guess my final thoughts are, as I said, I think this game is really cool and creative and has a lot of interesting things going on. I do really like the presentation, like the weird blocky, future retroism. Is that what we called it?
Yeah, that's what I went with.
To it. I like all that a lot. The diegetic tutorializing is great. I think it's designed really nicely to where like you notice it organically, and it's very effective. But yeah, like I feel like I just didn't. It's one of those games I just did not click with. As I said earlier, I think it's just designed by somebody whose brain works completely differently than mine. So yeah, it was weird because like it was very doable for, you know, the first like half ish, and then kind of just like kept ballooning to the point where the balloon, it popped for me. Or I did not want to keep going.
Sick metaphor, dude.
Yeah. But yeah, that's not anything against the game itself. Because I do think it's a good game. It's just very hard for my right-brained ass to get into. So, yeah, very cool, but just kind of not my thing. I think this game, for me, I think the ideal experience would have been like when we used to get together and play weird games at like midnight. If I just like picked it up, played it for like 2 hours, and then moved on, probably would have been the ideal experience for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This is a game that I honestly kind of unfortunately had an expectation for. Like I had heard people talk about it and say that it was good. So I knew what I was getting into to a certain extent. That being said, I will say the first, like the actual tutorial thing where you have to go through the train took me completely off guard for some reason. I was like, hold on a second. What's happening? Why am I running on the roof of a train? Like it's a spy movie, and it's because it is a spy movie as a game. But yeah, I really enjoyed sort of like taking the girl gang through all of the heists and doing all of the cool like stuff within the universe that it sets up. It's a very cool like world building experience because of how minimalist everything is, and yet how completely out there a lot of the concepts are. And then it's grounded for me in terms of like the way that the game sets up its puzzles with all of the typing on the deck and all using all the different tools, but all sort of falling into the same programmatic way of solving puzzles. Like it is a puzzle game that uses computational logic as its like basis, and to me it lived up to it. I thought that it was a very good exploration of that space. I do wish the game was slightly more stable because I had a lot of crashes with this one, but all in all, I do really like it. I don't know if I fully agree that the balloon popped, but I do agree that it goes a little bit out of it goes a little too far out of scope. Like it starts to add so many things that the game could have survived being a little bit shorter and having a couple fewer things in it. But even then, like it's a pretty short experience, so I had a good time with it. And if you pass the vibe check that I set out at the beginning, then you probably also will. Oh, thank you for listening to NoClip Podcast this week.
What will the die dictate about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about...
Oh, God. Die went so far away. 14.
14. No! Next time, we're going to be talking about Echo the Dolphin. By far the most out of left field
Oh, God. I hope we're actually
game on the list.
Actually able to play that.
I'm sure we can find a way. Life finds a way.
Life finds a way. I want to say that's a Dreamcast game, but I don't remember.
I believe it is a Sega Genesis game.
Oh, it's a Genesis game.
Yeah.
There maybe there was a Echo the Dolphin sequel on the Dreamcast.
You are correct. I think we're thinking of two different Echo the Dolphin games, but Echo the Dolphin, the original, is a Genesis game.
Okay.
So that'll be exciting. I know that this is like a cult classic. It's just one that we have not ever played before, so that's exciting. I don't even really remember exactly how this ended up on the list in the first place, but
me neither.
It's very funny that we're doing that. So until that time, You can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at NOCLIPpodcast.com or at splattershot.pro. There you can find links to our email address, our Twitter account, the YouTube channel, and you can listen to all of our old episodes, including the ones that we did on... We've mentioned several games. Baba Is You is the first thing that came to mind, but I don't think that we did talk about that on this episode.
I compared it to Roller Drome. Which
The
is
Roller
best,
Drome?
comparison.
Fucking Catherine.
I
Cool guy, cat cafe connoisseur.
I don't know why Tacoma just came to mind.
Oh yeah, Tacoma. I mean, it's a game. Also related in some way to Idle Thumbs, kind of. Hack that like button.
Turn 25 degrees and then go for 500 and then leave a comment in the comment section.
An alarm will go off if you are unsubscribed for more than 3 seconds.
Yeah. Enter command ring bell, parentheses 3. In parentheses? Bell.ring.
But yeah, bell.ring, parentheses 3. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Nothing can stop me from sweating under any circumstances.